What up, and welcome to the Found Her podcast. I am your host, Kelly Chaika, and I am so glad that you're here. With this podcast, I want to help support and encourage you on the journey to finding the best version of yourself. In the Found Her podcast, we're going to dive deeper into topics like dating, faith, fitness and nutrition, my story, and lessons that I've learned along the way. I hope you stick around as we find and become the best versions of ourselves. Ready?
Born.
All right, what up? Welcome back to another episode of the Found Her podcast. I am so excited because I am joined today by one of my best friends, Annie Shaw. Are you excited?
Yeah.
Are you nervous?
No.
I love this. Okay, just a little intro about Annie. I've known her for like how long? Maybe 15 years? Yeah. I love our friendship just because we've gone through a lot of similar things together, and we both started from like a very crazy high school experience. I've obviously talked about that before, but
Do I need a coaster?
no.
Okay.
We're not professional around here. But we both came from like a really crazy high school wild experience. We were degenerates. And then we've kind of grown up and found ourselves together, found our faith, and are trying to be more responsible and domesticated, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that's true?
Well, I mean, like, I have a kid. So, like, jail's not the vibe anymore.
Jail's not.
Previously, like, we did not care.
No.
That was, like, the goal.
No. When did you have how old were you when you had River?
25.
Okay.
And I just turned 29.
Okay.
Right?
Was he the one that made you, like, wake up and change your life? Like, was it immediate or was it, like...
Well, I didn't have a choice.
Okay.
So I was actually just talking about this with my cousin on, like, Friday. We were talking about, like, kids and, like, X, Y, and Z or whatever. And I was like, so pretty much my entire life, like, I was a party girl. Like, I was always, like, the person who, like, you wanted to go out with to, like, have a fun time.
Yeah.
And then I got pregnant. And you can't, like, live that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Well, if you want, right, if you want to be, like, a shitty parent. So then it was like, okay, well, now I need to, like, figure out who I am.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't, like, party and lay drunk all the time. Which, don't get me wrong, like, still love me a good night out.
Of course.
But that's been, you know, like, it wasn't, like, an instant,
And you weren't...
I need to get my shit together.
Like, when you found out you weren't here, like, you were in Kentucky, right?
No, I was in Sparta.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. But weren't you living... You came back and found out?
No. How did this go? No, so I had, like, moved back, and then I lived here, like, a year, not even, maybe. And then I was, like, seeing someone, and then...
Then it happened.
Pull and pray does not work, folks.
Doesn't work. We've learned our lessons.
Yeah.
Oh, but he's such a blessing. We love him. You're like, yeah, right.
He was so mean this morning.
Oh, my gosh. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with having a kid and, like, going to work and living your life and...
I drink.
I drink.
And I'm medicated.
And we go to church.
Yeah, that's true.
Lots of prayers. I love you. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay. The other funny thing about us, I feel like, is every time we get together, I'm not kidding you guys, we sit here just like we are right now, and we have little coffee chats, and we just tell each other about what we're learning in therapy, and it's my favorite thing ever, because we're always both, like, shook. And we're like, what just happened? So one thing that we've both been talking about a lot, and you're going to laugh, is the fact that we both struggle with self-sabotage. So I want to talk about that. How do you feel like you self-sabotage in your life, whether it's in, like, relationships or with your work life, family? Like, how do you self-sabotage in general?
I didn't know that I did it until, like, I started going to therapy. And her name is Laura. Laura, you're great.
We love you.
We love you. And she was like, Annie, like, so she says that I self-sabotage because I can control the narrative.
Alrighty, we're back. Had some minor difficulties with this microphone thing, died. So after all that, you guys, to be quite frank, we just recorded 25 minutes and realized that only 5 minutes of it was recording. You'd think I haven't done this before. Honestly, it's fine. We survived. But what we were talking about when it cut out.
She did just say we had some minor casualties. I was like, Kelly, no one died.
Feels like somebody died. You know when you put all your effort into something and then it just, like, erases and you're like, shit.
Or when something doesn't live up to your expectations.
Always. Oh,
you gotta set the bar low, man.
oh, we could talk about expectations since we're on the freaking topic
Of self-sabotaging?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
setting the bar low.
Okay, so I think we cut off when I was asking you what you do to self-sabotage.
Oh. Yeah, so I didn't realize that I did it.
Okay.
And sorry if I'm repeating myself, just don't remember what I talked about. I didn't realize that I self-sabotaged until I started going to therapy. And she was like, Annie, like, you self-sabotage. And I was like, no, I don't. No, I don't.
Couldn't be me.
Me?
Ooh.
No.
Couldn't be.
And so she says that I self-sabotage to control the narrative.
Okay.
That I, like, want to predict and be in control.
Okay.
So it's like, he's going to break up with me. He's going to end it.
Yep.
So then, like, subconsciously, I'm doing things to push him to break up with me or end it or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, see, yep, called it.
Yep.
I knew he was going to break up with me.
Do you feel like that makes you feel better when the relationship does end? Like, it almost protects you from...
I mean, it's like, I won.
I won, even though I actually lost. I just called it before it was going to happen.
Because then I called it.
Yeah. But it doesn't hurt any less.
Yeah. No, it does, because then I'm less blindsided. Like, I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. That's true. I feel like I do that too. Like, I always expect the worst, but that's just because we've always gotten the worst.
Which
that
is
it's like
self-sabotaging.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, and I think that goes off of like expectations too. Like, my expectations, I feel like it's so contradicting though, because my expectations for a man are low, but my standards are high. Like, does that make sense? Like, when I think of in my head, you're like, no. No, that's a little psycho. But like,
I'm just a little contradictory.
Like, my standards, contradicting maybe. My standards are high. Like, when I picture like the man that I want, I've talked about this before, like with the list, like they're so high. And I'm like, I will not settle for anything less than what I deserve. But then the minute that I get with a guy, I'm like, oh, beat my ass? Okay.
A felony? It's fine.
It's okay.
I'll take you see parole officer.
And maybe that's not who I am now, but like before, it's so wild how and you probably feel this way too, because we had a lot of a similar like background when it came to the type of men that we went for.
Oh yeah.
But we like, you accept a lot of the things that you didn't think that you would, which is wild. Like, looking back, I'm like, I was such a strong chick and I never thought that I would allow any of that to happen. But like, slowly but surely, one thing after another, you're like, oh, that's fine. That's fine too. And then you're just 5 years later down the line and you're like, this is trash.
This is awful.
This is actually awful. And how did I get here?
See, like, the first person I was with was just like right out of the gate. Sucked. But I didn't know any different.
True.
So the bar was in hell before I even had a chance to set it.
Why do you feel like your bar was so low right away?
Because I didn't know any different.
From your upbringing or?
All of it.
It's so sad.
But I'm funny.
That's how we cope, honestly.
Yeah.
That's okay. I feel like it is so wild, like how I feel like people talk about nature versus nurture. Have you heard of that before?
Better holding it this time.
That's good.
It's giving less,
improvements.
Like, my heart will go on.
It's giving improvement. But I feel like, okay, have you heard of the concept of nature versus nurture?
Yeah, I had to do like a paper on it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, fascinating. But I think it's so wild how, like, maybe our upbringings are slightly different in like from
Slightly?
Do you want to divulge? So I had like the most amazing family, typical white picket fence. My parents are so in love, like healthy all the way through.
2.5 kids, a dog, like
Yeah,
a boat.
Amazing. Like, great life. Can't complain. Now, the men in my life wrecked it. Not my father, but like the toxic relationships that came after just like shook up my narrative of what I thought love was. But for you, maybe that was set early. Like, your expectations were low from the jump.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember the first time that a guy called me a bad word, and I was like, me? Like, you can't say that. Never talk to me again. And
Really?
then, oh my gosh. I remember he used the C word, and I was like, I literally broke up with him and was like, we are done. You do not talk to me that way.
So this obviously wasn't.
Because I had never.
What's his face?
Yeah, it was. I had never, no, literally, that was the first
Really?
time. Yes. And I was like, you're out of my life, lose my number, don't ever talk to me again. And then he came crawling back. And I was like, oh, I'll forgive him because I'm a nice person and whatever.
And this time it's different.
Yeah. But then that lasted for way too long.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just wild.
Where is this going with nature versus nurture?
Like how okay, so nature, I think. You're like, where are we getting? Okay, when it comes to nature, it's like how you were born versus nurture is like what you learned over time. And in my mind, the way I'm viewing it is like our upbringing were so different, but we came to the same conclusion. Like we accepted the same shit.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't need to come up with like a philosophical word for it, but
no. Where are you going?
It's like, where are we going? Actually, get it together. Okay, but when it comes to toxic relationships, so we've learned, we've grown, we've evolved, and we put up with a lot of toxic people, but now we're starting to transition into healthier relationships.
Golden retrievers.
Yes, okay, golden retrievers. So how do you feel like dating a golden retriever has like helped you? How has it been difficult? Like, because you've only been used to such toxic relationships, like how has it been?
Dobermans.
The dog types, for real.
Seriously.
The Dobermans, the pit bulls. We've gone through all of them.
Yeah, a wiener dog.
I don't think I could ever say that. Actually, yes, I could. The one. I die. Okay, so
I'm never going to be welcomed back.
Yes, you are. So this is on growth. But how would you say that, like, has it been difficult to transition, or has it just been like, wow, this is actually how it's supposed to be?
I mean, like, in any, whether it's like toxic or whether it's normal, you never know for like the first like couple weeks or even the first like couple months, because they're either like love bombing you before you realize that it's toxic.
Yep.
Or they could just be like actually a decent human being. Mm-hmm. But I would say, I don't want to use the word bored, because that's not it. Like, he's so kind. I never have to ask for reassurance. Like, I never like have to like be insecure or anxious. Like, I've never experienced any anxiety with him.
Yeah.
But when you go from like the constant like highs and lows and the chase, and that's like what you get addicted to.
Yep.
It's definitely different. Like, I don't want to say it's like less. Yeah. It's just, it's very different. Obviously good.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like, you deserve to like not be cheated on. But
yeah,
you know.
I agree. I feel like I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's so wild because you obviously dated people before. Like, you've had multiple, you said 4 relationships?
Yeah, and they've all cheated on me.
Yeah, which is absolutely terrible.
I am the problem.
No, you're not.
Yeah, remember I said I even get the two. I'm still getting cheated on.
That's awful. No, and you're not the problem. But like, when it comes to those relationships, I feel like we've talked about this before, but like, did you always go back? Like, when they ended it with you, did you try to go back every single time? Or were you like, cut, it's done?
Oh, yeah.
You did go back.
Like, the first person, oh my gosh, for years.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
Same.
6 years. Like,
Yeah.
on and off. And like, now looking back, like, I was like just as toxic.
Right.
Like,
I know.
needed to be like put in a rubber room. Like, I was so unwell.
It's good to take accountability.
Yeah, but like the stuff, like looking back, I'm like, Annie, like, how did you think that was logical? Or that was just like so okay to do?
But I believe that it takes 2 to tango. Like, obviously, when it comes to a toxic relationship,
Don't leave a ring.
that's okay. You don't need
a water ring.
I've put so many things on there. It's just fine. So when it comes to going back and forth in relationships, obviously we go back all of the time.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, now that I've already told you about this before, you're not going to be as shocked, which is fine. But I was listening to, some of these people might be shocked by it. I was listening to the Jay Shetty podcast yesterday, and it was so good because he was talking about nostalgia and how our memories, like, we tend to only remember the good because we become obsessed with the nostalgia feeling. Like when you look back on pictures or you listen to an old song that reminds you of something, like it makes you feel good and you become addicted to that feeling. That a lot of times as time goes on, there was literally studies done about it, but your good memories become better and your bad memories fade.
Like the TikTok of like the two girls.
Yes. What was that?
I mean, there's like a bunch of them, but it's like the one girl's like, oh, do you remember the time that he bought me flowers? And then it pans to the friend and it's like, remember the time that he cheated on you?
Yeah. And that happens. Like, it's like, why do we always try to remember the good? Like, it's like, even now after going through that, like I sometimes look back and I'm like, did that happen? Like, it's almost like you forget and you gaslight yourself into thinking like, I don't really
believe it that bad?
Yeah. Like I remember, this is so bad and clearly I was crazy back then, but I wrote a list in my phone of all of the things that that person had done to me so that I would remember, so that when I thought about going back, I would go back and look at it. And I remember when I went back to look at the list like years later, I was like, did that really happen? Like I genuinely just like blocked it out. And I was like, no, he was a good guy. Like, I just think that's so wild how we just can shut that side of our brain off. Maybe it's a trauma response. I don't know. But I genuinely, even still to this day, I'm like, did it happen? And when I go to therapy and I talk to her about it, she's like, why are you talking so casually about like.
You literally pulled a whole ass Santa Claus, made a list, checked it twice, and still freaking went back.
I know. What is wrong? And I'm not like that anymore. I mean, I still look back and I'm like, did it happen? I don't know. But now I don't need the validation whether it happened or not because that person's so far gone. Thank you, Jesus. But thank you. But I'm just like, have you ever done that?
Made a list?
No, maybe not made a list, but have you ever looked back and been like, did that actually happen? And then you try to gaslight yourself into believing that it didn't?
Yeah, and I mean, that's like, not with relationships, but of like certain traumatic things that have happened to me. But like, did that actually happen?
Yeah. And you like don't want to believe it.
Yeah. And then like you're talking about it and like the person who you're talking to about is like crying.
Yes.
And you're just like telling it like it's like you're talking about the weather.
Yes. Why is that? That's when I was talking to my therapist and she goes, you're talking about very intense things that you should be getting upset about and you're like smiling. And I'm like.
It was at that point she was committed.
And I was like, well, I have to laugh it off. Like, I'm just like, what am I going to do? Sit here and cry? No, we can't do that shit.
But I think they expect you to.
I know, but that's so difficult. I'm like, I really can't. I don't know. I'm with you on that.
You get me hammered though, I don't cry.
You're like, then we're deep in emotional combos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Okay, other thing I want to talk about is your faith journey because we've obviously both gone from like not being deep in our faith to now like it's a lot of the principles that we live by. And I've always struggled when it comes to your faith with like not being the perfect person. And like I always thought as a Christian, you have to show up with a white dress, sing the hymnals, look all beautiful, have blonde hair. Like it was just like perfect, angelic.
That's like a Mormon.
I know. And I don't know why that vision is in my head. It's crazy. But like, okay, so we've grown in our faith and we're both obviously not perfect, just by the way that we are talking half the time, which is fine. But I want to know your faith story. Like, where did your faith start? Have you always been a Christian? Did it grow and evolve as you got older? Like, give me the rundown.
So I was born and raised in a very like strict Catholic family.
Okay.
So like Catholic guilt, like if you know, you know.
Yep.
Went to like Catholic school, kindergarten through 8th grade. And then like once I got to high school, like literally went buck wild. The only time I went to church was when I was like forced to go, like on Sundays. Like it was never like, oh, I want to go to church. Always believed in God, Jesus, heaven, hell, like the whole kit and caboodle.
Yep.
And then even like in my early 20s when I hadn't gone to church in years and years. Like even on like high holidays, like never went to church. But still like someone puts a gun to my head, I would never say like, oh, God isn't real.
Right.
Gun to my head, God is real, Jesus is real. I have never not believed that. A couple of years ago, and I don't really know why, I just was like, I kind of like want to like get back into this. It's probably Riv. I don't know. That's my son's name. And then, yeah, so we obviously like go to the same church and started going. And I don't know if I've ever told you this.
What?
So the first time I went to church, I actually like wasn't like, this is literally the first time I've told her. So the first time I went, I had my son with me, Riv, and he was probably like 1 maybe. And if like you've ever like taken your kids to church or like seen kids, toddlers in church, like you need the snacks, they don't want to sit still, like you get embarrassed because like people around you, like what are they thinking?
Yep.
And overall, like he really was good. Packed a bunch of snacks. I packed, you know, like a coloring book, but he still like wanted to like go around, like run around, whatever.
Yep.
So there was this older couple and they were next to me. And she kind of leaned over and she's like, it's okay. Like my granddaughter is like 1. And I was like, oh yeah, same age. Continued on with the service, blah, blah, blah. We're getting up to leave. And the husband turns to me and he was like, hey, is it okay if we pray over you? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And that's like not something that you typically do like in the Catholic faith. Like you'll say prayers for people, but like directly praying over someone isn't something that like I ever experienced like growing up Catholic.
And that was your first time.
That was my first time.
That's
so
wild.
They're praying over me. I am bawling. I am shaking. I'm crying so hard because the stuff that they were saying, it was like they were reading my mind. It was wild. It was like,
that's insane.
I could not stop crying. Like I'm even like in the parking lot, like bawling. I'm driving home. I'm bawling. Like it was crazy.
That's like a Holy Spirit wrecked you.
It was like
moment.
A whole type of, yeah. So then went every Sunday, loved it, fell in love with the church. And I still love the church. Like I still go, just not as, you know. And then found, you know, I think like with me, like the more I go to church and like read my Bible and journal and do all the things, like the better person I feel like I'm being.
For sure.
But it's also like I know I want to get drunk on Saturday, but like I'll force myself not to because like I need to go to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
And like
the guilt when you show up to church hungover is real.
I've never done it because I'm just so ashamed.
Okay.
I literally won't.
Well, don't do it because I did it and I was like, I should not be here. I can still feel it coming through my pores.
Yeah.
That was like years ago, the last time I did that. But
so yeah, like not listening to like is bad of like music.
Yeah.
Like being mindful of like what I'm watching.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
Isn't it crazy how once you like dive into your faith or you feel like the Holy Spirit actually like wrecks you in a way, you are convicted of things that like never bothered you?
No, never would I ever have thought twice about the music I listened to.
No. And it's so wild. Like when I heard Doja Cat's song, what is it? Red. It was so popular. I think it's called Red. I don't know.
Know.
She a devil. She.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, that is the scariest song ever.
Yeah.
I like the minute it comes on, I'm like, next. Like it's creepy. But even like rap music, like I used to listen to rap music a lot. I don't. And now I can listen to worship music in my car, which I remember when that used to come on and I'd be like, change the station. Like
this is so cringy.
This is so cringe.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, this is like my first choice. Like I love it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I haven't been like going. Like life got busy and like the month of May, I was out of town every single weekend.
Yeah.
So I think I've went once, maybe twice since May. And I'm like, I need to go. Like Annie quit making excuses.
Yeah.
And one time I consciously made the choice like to go out and get drunk on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to church tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like
And the less you dive into it, the more that it starts to fade. Like that's how you know the enemy is so real.
Yeah.
Because the minute you start distancing yourself, it's like it's easier and easier to not go. Whereas when you're in it, you like want to be there, you want to keep going. But at the same time, I feel like you don't have to like it's okay to be busy. And I remember I went to church one time and one of the pastors said like, obviously summer gets busy and if you are like spending time with friends and family, like soak that up. Obviously God doesn't want you to like miss out on all these opportunities to go to church. Like as long as you're keeping him in the back of your mind and like praying and doing all those things, like it's there, we go through seasons. Like some seasons are just like crazy busy and others aren't. And like that's okay. Mom. So do you want to talk about motherhood?
sure.
Open book. She's like,
Just
you know,
an open book.
Literally,
like
I'll tell you
maybe
anything.
don't take my parenting advice.
Okay, so you became a mom at a younger age and you've been a single mom since day one. Like haven't really had any other help other than your
Like family and friends, yeah.
Right. Like
Which I have like a great support system when it comes to like family and friends. So
Yes.
like I can't complain.
right. But how do you feel like becoming a mom like changed you as a person? Did it change you? Like has it been difficult when it comes to like your dating and things like that? Or
Yeah. So I'm pregnant and I'm like, holy crap. Like now what? Like, I can't drink, I can't go out. And that was like my entire personality.
Yep.
Which is like really embarrassing to admit.
No, it's not.
Well, it's not great.
Well, it's growth.
I thought you said, well, it's gross. I know, Kelly. I know.
Well, maybe we discovered other hobbies, huh?
Yeah. So I was actually having this conversation with my cousin, like on Friday. And we were talking about this, and I was like, said essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
So now it's like the past couple years, like trying to figure out like who I am.
I know.
Like my personality and like my likes and dislikes and other activities other than going out. Which, I mean, like you still can do as a parent, but
yeah. But
obviously not every night.
No.
As if you want to be a good parent.
Exactly. And it's so wild that when we come from, like, I've talked about this before, but in high school and college, drinking was like our main activity.
Well, even like where we live.
Yes. Like Wisconsin is known for drinking.
Yeah. And I come from a very drinking family.
Exactly.
Like like even like my grandma, like that's my grandma's favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
If she wants to sit and have her brandy and cokes
Yep.
and eat her popcorn and
Yep.
chit chat.
Yes.
Mowing lawn, you crack a beer.
Exactly.
Got to do the dishes, crack a beer. Which like
You're like,
it's giving alcoholism.
we're trying to get out of it, but we're good. But I mean, it is so wild. I feel like that's half the reason that I started the podcast called Found Her, because it is like a huge jump from going from just drinking all the time and not really having anything that you're working towards to then trying to figure out who you are. So after giving up drinking, or like not necessarily giving up drinking because we haven't, but like slowing down on your drinking.
Not going out every weekend?
Yes. And like learning more about yourself, finding yourself, all of that. Like what is one thing that you've learned about yourself since then? Obviously that's deep, but like give me a deep one.
Love not being hungover all the time.
Well, yeah.
That's great.
Amazing.
So really just like, it's amazing how much more productive you are when you're not hungover all the time. And I get like the worst anxiety
Yep.
on this planet.
Same.
Like my anxiety will last days.
Like you rethink everything.
Everything. And then, so I will get like super anxious and then like very depressed. Obviously, like you eat like crap
Yeah.
when you're hungover.
Yep.
Like I'm a bottomless pit the next day.
Same.
So I've definitely noticed like the less I drink, the more like improved my moods are,
Yep.
you know?
Did you also notice, like, okay, when it comes to when you're out drinking, like,
Just pressed a button. Is it still working?
yeah, talk.
Hello?
Yeah, you're good. Technology. When it comes to drinking, for me, I like found a lot of my personality in that, and I loved being the person that like showed up to the party, was the life of the party, could go there by myself, like wasn't scared at all. And then after that, I struggled with like kind of finding my identity outside of that, because I'm like, maybe I don't want to drink so much, like, but then other people expect you to be that way.
Oh yeah, it's like, why aren't you drinking?
Yes. So how have you like pushed past the identity that you had while you're drinking versus like who you are now?
I mean, that I'm still very much so like working on, because like same with you. Like people like see me and they're like, oh, you want a beer?
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, yeah, like, but then again, no.
Yeah.
So for a while, and it sounds like kind of depressing, I would just like avoid like any sort of situation where I know there would be alcohol.
Yeah.
Which literally is like what people do when they're in recovery.
Awful. But I did the same thing. It's
like,
easier.
You know, and then like once I would get like comfortable with like, okay, like I'm not going to drink.
Yeah.
Then I could like immerse myself into those situations again.
Yeah.
But I have never gone to a bar and not drank.
Yeah.
You know, like now I can like go out to like my parents' house or whatever and like not drink and like be fine with it.
Yep.
And I'm like definitely like less anxious. It's just like taking time.
Yeah.
Like the first couple times I went somewhere and didn't drink, I was just like so anxious.
Yeah.
'Cause like you, like I could, you know, like people expect me to be.
And then if you didn't, they're like, why are you not? Like that's
what's wrong with
weird.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the pushback of that is so crazy. Like it's just like, why? And anytime, and I used to be the same way. Like when my friends weren't drinking, I was like, why are you not? But now I'm like,
I still find myself doing that. And it's like, Annie, like they don't need a reason.
yes.
Just like
just allow them to live their life.
to not drink.
I know. I'm with you on that. It is
Yeah.
crazy. work in progress, honestly. Okay, I did want to pivot back because I think something that a lot of girls probably struggle with is, which we kind of touched on, is going back to the same guy over and over and over and over, or like just feeding in that same toxic cycle.
Yeah.
And we are both people that have done the same thing. I guess I don't really have a question, but like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, why do you feel like you always went back to the same person over and over?
I mean, like you said, like we both did.
Yeah.
And like I haven't done it just with like one person.
Mm-hmm.
It was like every person that I've been with in every
Yeah.
toxic relationship, I would just like keep going back. And my mentality always was, which I'm not saying like everyone should follow this. This is just like what worked for me.
Yeah.
Keep going back until you hate them.
Yes.
And I have told myself that for a long time. And then I also like heard it recently. Probably like on TikTok or something stupid.
Yep.
And it just like fed into my delusions.
You wrecked me when you told me that years ago. And it was when I was still in a toxic relationship. And you were like, just keep going back until you hate them. And I was like, oh, I love this. Because
I was like spoon filling you.
with
feeding
delusion.
you.
Yeah. Just filling me up with
Just-
all the delusions that I need. But at the time, I loved that piece of advice because it allowed me to be like, oh, I can keep going back. But now looking back on it, it was such like a needed thing because you really do like have to keep going back until you hate them. And some people
Yeah.
can just like cut it and like be done. And if you can do that, do it. It'll save you a lot of time in your life.
So much time.
So much. But for those of you who are like stuck in that same cycle like we were, like I really did have to keep going back and like hoping that I was getting a different outcome. And then when I kept not getting it, eventually I was just like, I'm so over this. Like eventually you grow out of it and you really do just like hate them and you're like, I can't. Like,
Yeah.
And then you just give it up and it doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah. So I was with this guy, and we called him Barboy.
Okay.
So we're just gonna call him Barboy.
Love it.
We're still on this one. I met him when I was bartending.
Okay.
That's why his name is Barboy.
Gotcha.
Anyways, so it was like a year that him and I were like together. Mm-hmm. But it was like super on and off. He would like give me everything I wanted and then more, and then ignore me for 2 weeks. And I went back to him 3 or 4 times, like since like the year, whatever, that I like would keep going back.
Yep.
And he would beg and he would plea, and it would be great for like the first couple weeks.
Yep.
And then same pattern. And the last time that I went back was probably like April, March, something, I don't know, something in there. I had just gotten out of a relationship where he cheated on me. So then I went back to Barboy because I was like sad and hurt and
Yep.
I wanted the validation.
Yep.
So we hung out, and then the next day I didn't hear from him. And it didn't bother me at all.
Because
Like
you were
I
already
was
over
just
it.
so like, huh. Like, Annie, you knew like, and then I was like, I really am like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. You're like, I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
I can see the future.
Literally giving Harry Potter. I wish I could remember her name.
Hermione?
No. She's not the one who does the prophecies.
I don't remember anybody who did prophecies in Harry Potter.
Yeah, she's a professor.
Okay.
Anyways, but I will say before, when I like wasn't bothered, I could literally be so dramatic. So I like found this like song and I was like, this describes it to a T. So I get the song, right? I text it to him, waited like 10 minutes to make sure that it was delivered, and then I blocked him. Who does that?
I actually die when it comes to that because it's such a. How old were you?
This was like 6 months ago. Not literally. Like this was recent. That I thought this was like a logical thing to do.
No, and then you look back and you're like, what was I doing?
But I unblocked him after I did it.
Just to see if he responded.
Well, you can't. If they did text you back when they're blocked, like you can't see it.
Just be like, keep this song in memory of me.
But I needed something done with my house. And he like does construction.
Okay.
Did not respond. He literally didn't respond. I sent that in April. He texted me like June.
I
It
can't.
was the night that I met Golden Retriever is when he texted
What
me
are
and
the
I
odds?
said the devil.
No,
Literally.
Literally, they always come back.
They smell it.
No, they always come back
Always.
right before you're about to be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
But then you got to be at that level where you're
Yeah.
like, because the temptation is there. Like, you're like, okay, maybe,
Yeah.
like, because it's fun and exciting. But you're like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, That happens a lot.
Yeah. So then he asked me just something stupid, and then I responded, and I just kept it like very short.
Yeah.
And he's like reached out like a few times, and I've either like left him undelivered or given like very like short responses.
Yeah.
Because I don't need that.
Yeah.
And I also don't feel like the need to have that validation anymore.
No, we got to leave that man behind us. He's
No,
done. He's
yeah.
over. That's crazy though. I am with you. Like, I feel like I've gone back to every relationship too. And even when I like know for sure that they're not the one, like I talked about this on the last podcast and we've talked about this so many times before too, that we pray the prayer that's like, God, if
hate the prayer.
If he's not for me, please take him away. And the amount of times I've done that and he takes him away and then I'm like, but did you actually?
Oh, yeah.
And then you go back and you're like, oh, and then he leaves again and you're like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, at what point are we going to learn? Granted, I feel like now I'm like so much better than I was before that now I'm like, okay, I'm ready for a healthy, stable relationship, but I don't want that. But I just think it's so funny how many times we probably prayed that and didn't listen. Like, we were just
literally
wild enough to be like, oh, but maybe, I don't know.
Maybe like he was like just kidding.
Yeah.
Or, like it was a coincidence.
It was.
I will always tell myself it was a coincidence. Like, no, I don't think that's how that works, Annie.
No, God's like knocking on your door, being like, are you going to listen? And then he starts pounding on it. And he's like, you're not listening to me.
Yeah.
And
Golden
then
Retriever got me a Bible for my birthday.
I love that.
Yeah.
As he should.
Got me a Bible, and then it got my name engraved in it with these like pretty flowers. I was trying so hard to not cry. I know.
See, keep this man.
I know. The rest of them have given me depression.
Bar boy is gone.
Bar boy is
Golden Retriever is in.
there. Yes.
I love this.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So you need to keep them blocked. That is the moral of that very long-winded story. You just got to keep them blocked.
Yeah. Don't ever
unblock them.
No.
That is the worst. That is.
And it's so embarrassing because it gives them so much fulfillment. Like the amount of times that I went back, then they just expect you to come back. And you're like, no, I'm a strong, independent woman. I do not need to do that anymore. Yeah, I'm with you.
Like it's giving desperation.
Yeah.
Which it really is.
And we're too old for that.
So gross.
Yeah.
So gross.
Too old for it. Okay, last closing question I have for you is, out of everything that you've done in your life, wild, I know, what do you feel like is... Okay, even if it's not related to relationships, like we already gave good pieces of advice, but like what would be the best piece of advice or like lesson that you've learned throughout your life, throughout therapy? Like what's one thing that you're like, oh shit, that like stuck with me?
Well, the one thing that you told me that your therapist said you, and I was literally I was wrecked. I told my therapist that and I was like, well, my friend Kelly's therapist said.
We really do share therapy.
Yeah. That wrecked me to my absolute core. I told that to Golden Retriever.
Okay, say it.
Oh, okay. What this? Are you sure?
Yeah, say it.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be like as deep as I said it, but
I don't know how to not say it deep. It was deep.
I know it's so deep. Well, just
It was like Marina Trench.
okay. We'll try to summarize.
Okay, so the summary of it is like, which I related to it too, like 110%. And this is me actually like being very, maybe there's only 50 people watching.
Yeah.
And I don't even know any of them.
Yeah, that's fine.
I guess we ride at dawn.
Yeah. We ride at dawn. We're in it together.
So essentially, like, I have never had sex with someone because I've wanted to. And it's not like, and I know people's like mind instantly jumps to like rape or sexual assault. And I'm not making light or making any jokes about that because that is, and I'm very passionate about women's rights. So I'm not alluding to that in the slightest. Mm-hmm. But essentially, like, I have only slept with people to get validation. Mm-hmm. Like, even when I'm the one that's like putting forth the effort to try to sleep with them, it's like, okay, well, if I sleep with them or if I, then they'll love me. Then they'll stay.
Yeah.
Or when like they've tried, and I'd say like all women have been there.
Oh, 100%.
Like, it's just easier to give in.
It is. And
it's so much easier to just like when they're trying and you don't want to. And it's just, okay, whatever. Like,
yeah,
he'll be there in the morning.
Yeah.
No,
and it's
won't.
like, especially when you go through all of those toxic things, it's like that trains you to believe that. In our society or our culture, when we were growing up, it was so prevalent that like, it was just a thing that you should do. Now, obviously, as we get older and like you grow in your faith, we wish that would not have happened.
Oh, 1,000%.
Like, and you were just like, now I understand why they say like wait for marriage, because there's so many.
He was onto something.
Yes, there's so many things that like wreck you when it comes to that. And I was in the same boat. And like she's talking about, like I was talking to my therapist about it, and she was like, you have to be like, I don't know. It's like, why do we need the validation, or why do we feel like they?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
And it's something that I always think about. And even now, it's like she tried to give me the advice, and she didn't even give advice on like how to move forward. She just like told me.
She's like, we'll figure it out.
She just dropped the bomb.
Yeah.
It was like, that's why it is the way it is. But
and some people can have like casual hookups and I'm not judging anyone for how they choose to live their life.
Yeah.
Or like being like, you should feel ashamed, or no, absolutely not. It was just like when Kelly shared that with me, I was like,
it wrecked me too. It's like, I thought about it for weeks, because she literally was like, the only reason, like she kept drilling, like, have you ever had sex because you wanted to? And I was like, well,
yeah.
I'm like, maybe. And she's like, but like, she was like, it's different than initiating. Like, did you ever have sex because you felt like you were ready and your relationship was there? And I was like, well, no, I just did it because that's what I felt like they wanted. And then every morning I woke up the next day, I felt guilty and ashamed.
about yourself.
And you feel like crap, and they leave, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then to get that validation again, you go back and do the same thing. But then you keep waking up with that same feeling over and over. And at some point I came to a realization in my life, and I was like, no, like, I'm so done with this. I'm not about to do it anymore. And it's hard when you then become more of an adult, and you're just like, okay, now I want to be like the person who makes the decision, and you just overthink it that much more. Like,
Right.
it's like, am I doing this because I want validation, or am I doing this because I want to?
Right.
And like, it
And
feels
it's very
right.
hard to differentiate.
Yeah, it is crazy. That is a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah.
That's a deep one to end on.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
We're here for it. Hopefully that helps some people. Well,
if
I
not,
love this. Yeah. If not, it was just the two of us.
It was just the two of us.
I love it. Well, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say? Talk about anything?
I can yap. Honestly, after the camera, I might just keep holding this.
You're like, I'm just going to use this the rest of my life.
This is great. I feel so, I don't know.
Honestly, we should do a part 2 at some point. Annie is like my favorite person to chat with, because she'll go deep and she has no filter. Like, she has no problem talking about anything.
No.
Whereas most people, and myself included, when it comes to a podcast, sometimes it can be so hard to talk about like intimate things about your life.
I don't give a shit.
And like other people, I'm just like, oh my gosh, public perception. What are people thinking? Da 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 da. But it's like, at the end of the day, all of us are human. We all deal with shit. We've all gone through the same things in life in different like facets. And I just think it's helpful to like hear other people talk about it. And at the very least, it's entertaining. So
I like to think I'm entertaining.
you are, honestly. But I loved having you on.
I loved being on.
Well,
We had a really good,
we had a great 30 minutes, and then none of it recorded.
No.
But I think we did great. So
I definitely was very funnier in the first one. The second one, I think, was a lot more serious and deep.
well, we can blend the two. Who knows? But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm so thankful for you for watching. Thank you to Miss Annie for coming on. I love you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, peace and love. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.